All right, guys, welcome to the Golden War. So, a lot of stuff is going on here, even though we're not even through the first day of peace. So, this video has two purposes. The first is to kind of be a touchstone for our team here as we move forward. And then the second, of course, is for entertainment purposes when I release this game publicly. So, let me just tell you, if you look at this map, you can kind of get the idea of what our basic strategy was. You can see that Italy, so enemy appearing in beige, Italy is surrounded by 1, 2, 3, 4 of us. So Italy was elected to be the all-in dog pile, right? So it seemed pretty obvious. We've even talked about how many each of our teams can commit. And when I say 1, 2, 3, 4, I didn't count myself, but I even felt like I could commit some troops down as well. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 troops, 5 countries rather, could attack into Italy, and Italy wouldn't have much relief. However, this is a premier alliance that we're playing against, a very experienced alliance that has a lot of practice in tournament play. So we're going to see stuff that we have not seen before. So to that end, let's take a look at what's developing so far. So starting in the lower left-hand corner here, we do have Alpha Doggo going ahead and following the plan. Woo! Son of a bitch. Alpha Doggo is following the plan here. He's bringing up a good, looks like 60 or 70, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70-ish troops. And those troops were intended to rally here in the south of France, along with a bunch of guys from France, French guys. Those were going to be putting pressure on northern Italy. So that's sort of moving according to plan, more or less, right? I think those troops should be able to get there. Yeah, 18 hours to get there, and then another few. We still have, what is that, 24 plus 7. So we still got 31 hours to get here. That should be plenty of time. I hope that Morocco continues on and lands here in Marseille. If that happens, that's great, because I think it works, continues to work as a threat both into Italy, but also back into Spain, a land threat in both directions. Now, one of the things that you might have noticed as we move around the board clockwise is Spain is not behaving according to plan at all. We expected Spain to be pinched between Morocco and France and be somewhat defensive / immobilized. In fact, what Spain has done is mobilize almost his entire force, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, let's say 100, and then who knows what's down here, but probably another 10 or 20. So most of his force, most of his entire country's army is mobilizing east. Now, the most obvious explanation for that is Italy retreats southward, Spain occupies northern Italy. That's why Italy made these forts. I was like, why did he make forts and then leave? What a noob. No, they're not noobs. I knew they weren't noobs. I didn't know why they did that. But Spain either occupying these, or Italy returning and occupying them themselves. They have time to come back with all these troops they ran south. I don't know why they ran them south. Somebody was mentioning maybe for morale purposes. But whatever the case, I was thinking for a while there, I was going to be able to run in and just capture these forts, and that would have been beautiful. So I haven't given up on that hope, but it's not looking great. So you might notice that France does not have a large force here, as per our plan. Why not, France? What's going on, man? What's wrong, France? Well, this is what's wrong. Holy shit. Look at this. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. We talked about all-ins, guys. We talked about people committing with all of their forces, and what we have here is a huge force massing to the northwest of France. Now, I'm super happy. If anyone was going to be here, I'm glad it's Raya Force. I don't know which one. Anyway, because he is so good at holding troops back out of sight, luring people into attack, and then using his superior mobility. Remember, you get 3 times the mobility of somebody who's on land, and especially somebody who's disembarking and whatnot, to run in and trap them and defeat them. So we have the right person defending. Now, one thing I will say is that Raya Force didn't get practice defending coastland. He was defending long roads in Russia. So this is going to be really good experience for him. I know for a fact he's a super intelligent guy who soaks up knowledge and experience like a sponge. So this is going to be really, really good for everyone in this game, but particularly him, because this is going to be another sort of skill set for his toolbox. So I'm loving it. So what does this mean? So a few things have shifted. Spain appears to be shifting east to assist Italy. That's to be expected. We should have expected that. We didn't particularly think about it, but that makes sense, right? The shift south for Rome, I don't get it particularly, but if Spain comes in and occupies these forts, then it does make perfect sense. Now, let's just continue clockwise around as we march on. One thing I've noticed as my spies have been moving north is that I don't have pressure from Sweden. I don't see anything moving down here towards Germany from Sweden. I also see that most of Britain appears to be moving westward here and rallying in the ocean. So again, I was thinking that Germany, and I think we all thought that Germany was the natural focus of the attack from Britain, Sweden, and Russia, all attacking in at once. And that doesn't seem to be happening. So very interesting stuff here. We are attending a master class here as we play against this coalition. That was a big part of why I really did my best. They kind of blew us off early on, and I resorted to some petty tactics of like, well, if you guys get your courage up, go ahead and come back. And then he was like, well, if you guys get your courage up, then so they challenged us again. But I just really wanted to play them for that exact reason, that we need to play against experienced players. We need to watch how they play. We need to do our best against them for sure. But in this game, even if we lose, we win because we're getting that valuable experience watching these guys as they play. So we expected an all-in dogpile from these three, and we're not getting it. Britain's moving west, and we can see here, if we zoom in a little bit, it looks like Sweden is moving east, more or less. At least he's sending some people out here into the ocean, into the sea here, and we'll see what happens as that develops. Of course, our scouts are moving out. As always, we have to have eyes on the world, know what's going on out there. Speaking of which, it does look like Russia, as we move clockwise around here, Russia does seem to be moving forces down here into sort of a critical little place here, a double wheat tile that is very important and is potentially vulnerable. If you think about it, if Poland gets right-of-way here with Romania, then he needs to have this defended. So I can understand why he's stacking here. But I can also understand because this is one of the two territories that Russia has that can attack into this gateway territory. So we've talked about the hot gates, Benaya and I, because that's a term, of course, that comes from classical literature with respect to strategy. And of course, all the way back to, if you want to go see 300, the movie, 300 is loosely based on an actual historic defend that happened at a choke point. So hot gates have always been used as an example of a small force being able to protect a cinch point, right? A bottleneck. So that is sort of a concern here. We need to make sure, of course, that Austria has troops here and forts here. He's building a fort. I believe his intention is to have a level 2 fort there and possibly beyond before the end of this game. But he is paying attention. He is doing what he needs to be doing. I will say that as far as commitment to Italy, we talked about every one of us in the region committing troops to Italy. Okay, let's just talk about it. Morocco, committed. We said 70 troops, 70-ish, maybe more. France, quasi-committed, but I understand because there's a giant fucking force of goddamn Englishmen over here. So that mitigates that. So commitment, marginal, but understandable. Over to me. Commitment, yes, 50, and I just sent 10 more down. Commitment to Italy attack, yes. Now, Austria, what's happening? I don't know. I feel like we had a plan. One thing Austria is definitely doing is sending up shoreline defenders here, which I love. We talked about this. If Austria and France are able to send up just one troop each to stand on the shore here, here, and here, and then it looks like he's even sending them to the shore here and here, although the crucial ones I think were here, here, and here, these three, because this is going to be protected by a fort, and I'm going to build that fort up to level 2. But the idea being that if we have people from 3 different countries on the shore, if you want to land on Germany's shore, you have to declare war on 3 countries, which is going to destroy your popularity. So I love this idea of sending single units to protect each other's borders. I think that needs to be sort of included in our play from now on. And this came from a previous game that I played in Alliance Practice. And it was not my idea. And if it was your idea, please come forward, because I'm a freaking idiot. And I forgot who mentioned it. But I thought it was brilliant. I was like, yeah, if we send one guy of each of our coalition members, then whoever attacks one has to attack all. And that will destroy their popularity. So that was kind of an early idea. And so I do super appreciate Austria-Hungary for coming up and helping with that defense. But it looks like a defense that's never going to be needed. So they're kind of, they're kind of pranking us up here. Like, the attack that we thought would happen, it just looks like it's not going to happen. Now, keep in mind, my scouts still have a long way to go north in both directions, and so we'll learn more as they expose more of what's going on. But it does look like they've kind of circumvented that defense. Now, having said that, I don't see any troops committed to the Italian offensive. And so that is concerning to me. Maybe 12? Maybe 12 is coming down? I don't know. So we've got 70 from Morocco. France has been severely truncated because of this threat here, which I understand. We've got 50 and then another 10 coming down, so 60 from me. We have 0 from Austria, nothing from Austria. And keeping in mind, Austria, you don't have a southern border. This is your ally down here, and these are neutral troops. Now, of course, we have to be aware of if Russia were to get right of way. So I'm not denigrating that or putting that down whatsoever. And of course, you have to protect your hot gates here in Lemberg. Super important. But maybe I'm missing something. But yeah, I like this 9 here in the backcountry. And also, we even talked about maybe even making a fort here would be a good idea. I think making a fort there would be a good idea. But I don't see the commitment to Italy. I don't see who's coming over to help attack with Italy. That was our initial plan, and although that plan may need to be changed, that it really may need to be changed with these massive movements of Spain and Great Britain over here. However, I'm not convinced of that. I still think if Morocco comes up here with 75 and France is here with 7, that's 80, and then I've got my 60 here, and then if Austria had their 40 or 50 that was sort of planned to be here. And then again, if the Ottoman came over, and again, I'm not seeing the mustering of the Ottoman against Italy either. So 2 of our 5 that we're going to attack into Italy are not quite participating, I guess. And I'm not saying here's the first thing. I'm not the quarterback. I'm not the captain of this game. But I do feel like one thing that we really have to get crystal clear early on is that if we choose a captain and that captain says we do this, we've got to do this. And I tried to put it as clearly as I could in the idea that, like, look, if we fail, it should be a failure of strategy, not a failure of execution. So let me try to put this as clearly as I can. So I played chess. I played pool for years and years. And one of the things in pool that you try to do is you want to get your stroke the same way every time. So you perfect your stroke, you pivot at the elbow, you get your posture right. And the reason being, if your stroke is proper, then all you have to adjust is your aim, right? If your stroke is not proper, then you cannot move on to that next level, right? So my point being is that, to me, execution in this game is the stroke. We've got to get execution down. When the captain says to do it, we do it. And the reason for that is it eliminates a wild card. It eliminates a variable there. And then we can focus on the strategy. It killed me in my first game when I captained my first game. I called a strategy, and the strategy just didn't happen. And so we could never really evaluate the strategy. And people on the other team were coming at me like, hey, why did you do that? That didn't work. And I'm like, no, what I planned didn't even happen. I'll never know if what I planned would have worked because it didn't happen. So I'm ranting, but look, guys, if we want to put together a serious team that can perform against other hardcore alliances like we can see here, we have got to be able to execute. And I've told people again and again, like, look, even if you lose, then what you do is you say, well, that captain who told me what to do was a dumbass, and it's not even your fault. You don't have to take any of the blame. You get to blame it on whoever the captain is, right? But I'll just use this as an example. We are almost a full day in, and Austria is nowhere near Italy, and the Ottoman are nowhere near Italy. Now, I will say this about the Ottoman is they are moving steadily westward, so I cannot disrespect that at all. We have large groups moving westward. We have enough sufficient here to hold what looks like what's going on here with Russia. This is concerning. If these are big groups, then Ottoman might need to turn around. But I'm liking this westward movement. And keep in mind, we do have still 24 plus 7, 31 hours to go. So there's plenty of time for Ottoman to bring over a nice amount to attack into Italy. So I'm sorry about the rant, but it's part of what I think we really I've talked with Raya Force about it. I've talked to Benaya about it. And I've even talked to players who I've been in the server, the tournament server, talking to other alliance leaders and other people who play in tournaments. And they talk about the thing like one of the biggest things you have to achieve here is buy-in. You've got to get people to understand that they have to activate, and they have to activate with unity of purpose. And that's my whole thing is like, look, if we fail, it needs to be a failure of strategy, a failure of tactics, moment to moment, and a failure of strategy overall. Because if it's a failure of execution, then we never even get to the point where we can determine whether the strategy was good or not. You feel me? Like, it's like we have to know if we execute correctly, then we know that the strategy was bad and we can adjust. But if we execute poorly, we can never even judge the strategy. So a lot of this is just me ranting, and it's not specified to any particular person. In particular, I do want to say to Austria, in the real world here, I've said, hey, you haven't brought stuff over, but you don't have a lot of stuff, and you're surrounded, right? You're surrounded. But before you feel too surrounded, keep in mind that the big threat to your west is under the gun, right? So I've got 60 coming in to attack Italy. We have 75 more coming in to attack Italy, and the Ottoman are moving west with massive numbers to attack Italy. The idea being that if somebody's being attacked, they're not likely to attack you. So you can remove this entire threat from your radar. Keeping that in mind, you have a friend to the north, you have a friend to the south, and you have a beast to the east. So I get it, man. Like, I understand keeping troops over here. I like that you have troops here just in case they get right of way. I like that you have troops here in case they get right of way. But I think you're safe early on to go ahead, send 20 of these over there to your hot gates, right? To your choke point. But if you send 20, you still have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. You still have 50 to move over into position to attack into Italy. We have got to put that pressure on. That's my opinion anyway. I do want to hear from Raya Force, who is the captain for this particular game. What I'm doing in this video is really just cheerleading his strategy. And also, we have to keep in mind that we've got to be able to change strategy. So that's a whole other thing. With the advent of this massing of British troops, with the advent of the eastward movement of Spain, we have got to be able to pivot and change. But I would suggest that neither of those factors mitigates the need for us to have Austria and the Ottomans moving westward with large forces to put pressure on Italy. So, having said that, way too long for this video. Again, though, keep in mind, this is a video for strategy for my team, but it's also going to be the first video of this Golden War series. So this Golden War series will go on throughout the entire game from start to finish, and it's going to, I feel like it's going to be a textbook for alliance play moving forward. So apologies if I go into way too much detail about, like I just did, obviously, about sort of a failure. We want the failure to be in strategy, not in execution. I'm going to go into those details because part of me is, like, I'm a teacher. That's what I've done for 20 years. I'm a teacher. So part of me wants to make this into a training session for anybody who follows that wants to get into this alliance play, this tournament alliance play. So there's going to be some of that going on. I'm sorry, I can't avoid it. That sage on the stage bullshit where I'm, teaching a lesson or whatever. So to my teammates, please don't take offense. This is not for you. It's more for posterity. It's more for the big picture kind of thing. Trying to point out these larger sort of challenges that face us as we try to get 5 people, 5 unique, individual, creative, intelligent people to sort of to synchronize, right? To sort of integrate their thinking into a unit. It's not easy to do. It's very, very hard to do, in fact. So that's part of why we're doing this very game, and why we want to do as many of these games as possible, is to get these groups of 5 in here and start to trust each other and start to work together and understand that, like, if I need you, you're going to send me over some resources and or troops, and vice versa. So this whole thing is a huge, new, beautiful, fun, wonderful experience that we're just starting off with. So if you can't tell, I'm stoked. I'm super excited about it. I'm ready to have fun, and I have the utmost respect for all of my teammates in this game. So I know it's going to be good, and I'm waiting for Raya Force to react, because Raya Force is a thorough and I would even say meticulous, exhaustive planner and thinker, and I've seen it pay off again and again. So I'm waiting to hear back from Raya Force, because what I've been talking about in this game is just the obvious stuff. I want to know what he has in mind moving forward. So that's sort of the next step. And eventually, when I release this playlist, because I'm not going to release it in real time, I'm just going to release it to my allies first. But when I release this playlist, I do want to release it in concordance with any other playlist that might exist. So, for instance, Raya Force has been making videos as well. So it's going to be another one of those Frankenstein stacks where we include as many people's perspective as possible to make it that sort of 360 experience. All right, been talking way too long. Thanks for hearing me out, guys. I'm glad to have you here, whether you're my teammates in real time or the larger audience in posterity. Welcome. Thanks for being here, and adios, amigos.